Hi there, Jeremy here. In this video, what I want to do is talk to you about how Pellowah can really help kind of expand your consciousness and talk a bit about what that precisely means. Now, you may have heard of Pellowah more as a kind of a healing modality. And as a healing modality, it gets great results. So if you've got kind of emotional issues, often even physical issues, people have reported many times that Pellowah has really helped those. But interestingly, Pellowah was not originally devised as a healing method. Instead, it was created to help the founder and some of her friends kind of expand their consciousness. So that was the original aim. Now, interestingly, we've all heard the story that, we only use about 10% of our brain. We've also probably know about the fact that we are connected to two strands of DNA. Now, interestingly, those two strands actually only represent about 2 to 3% of the total DNA that we have in our body. And so the question arises, well, what if we could, say, use more of our brain? What if we could connect to more strands of our DNA? What would happen then? Now, interestingly, in some ways, many people already have done this. For instance, look at psychics. Psychics are tapping into these extrasensory abilities, which are going beyond the standard ways, which we use our mind, the way we use our body. And so or even just intuition. That's another thing. Often people, maybe they're not psychics, but suddenly they have an intuitive understanding, or they just know a moment before it happens that a friend is going to call them, or they just think of a friend and then they appear. And so this is kind of going outside that usual 10%, going outside those kind of two strands of DNA. But what happens then if we can kind of learn to expand this? What might happen? And so in a sense, that's Pellowah's original aim. Let's see if we can expand our innate abilities. Okay, now what's interesting is that recently scientists have learnt that although we only use typically 2 to 3%, that other 97% of DNA, which they called it junk DNA, and they thought it just did nothing. And now, interestingly, they're starting to discover that junk DNA, under certain circumstances, actually starts to go into operation and do really important things. For instance, like heal the body in unusual circumstances. So I think really the obvious thing is this: nature doesn't waste resources. So if it's there, even from an evolutionary point of view, there's a reason for it in almost all cases. And so it's like that with our DNA, for instance. So, as I said, the aim of Pellowah then is to kind of expand consciousness, get us beyond that 10%, beyond that 2 to 3% DNA. And Katrina, the founder, she often talks in terms of 12-strand DNA. So she's like, you know what, this is what Pellowah helps you to do. And she says it's a bit like, imagine you've got a house, and the house, you're just building the house and it hasn't got any wiring installed. Well, what the Pellowah does is it kind of puts in the wiring. And so now, if you still need the electricity to go through the wires, but you've kind of done the hard work. And so she says it's a bit like that with, the 12-strand DNA and stuff. You learn Pellowah, and suddenly now it creates the kind of the framework through which you can now start to access more and more things. Now, you might say, well, in practical terms, what does that mean? Am I going to do a Pellowah course and suddenly come out and wow, boom, you've found that you've got all these extrasensory abilities which just blossom? Well, it's not really going to be like that for most people. Normally it will be a gradual thing, and often for many people it might just be something as simple as, their intuition really improves, or they feel very connected to that deep part within themselves. And as a result, they have great emotional balance and they have great clarity on what they should be doing, because it helps them connect with this greater part of who they are. And so I've had many people who have done a course, and after the course, there've been these tremendous shifts that have happened in their life. People who have maybe, they've been thinking about going into alternative healing for some time, of working as a healer, but they've never quite had the courage to do it. They've always had too much doubt, too much resistance to it. Then they do a course like Pellowah and bang, the next week they realize, it is possible, and they do what needs to be done and they set up shop. So they can create, it can create these big and quite radical shifts just by connecting you to a deeper part of yourself, what many people would say consider your higher self. And as a result of connecting deeper too, often you find that, you're physical well-being is enhanced, your emotional well-being is enhanced. And so Pellowah creates these shifts, and just bit by bit what people find too is these extrasensory abilities do tend to expand, and it will start with your intuition, and then, you know, for some people, particularly people who are a little bit psychically inclined already, they find that those abilities tend to really flourish. So that then is one reason you might like to do it. You've got, you're sure, the general healing abilities of it for emotional and physical issues, but secondly, and in the sense more importantly, it just expands your innate abilities. So even things just like your ability to heal with other modalities, they too get enhanced because your general ability to connect to source, to draw down energy vibrations to then use for healing improves. Okay, so I hope that tells you a little bit more about Pellowah, and I look forward to telling you more still on another video.